Now you go, excuse me, from making this much money to now you're making this little money, and you're trying to live, and you're seeing on the news how this amount of money is that you already barely making is being at risk for being replenished.
Hello, welcome to the Dear Encourager podcast, where real stories meet radical hope, hosted by Vanessa Scott and Keesha Nix. This space is made for anyone navigating the journey of chronic illness and caretakers seeking connection, compassion, and a community that gets it. Each episode, we bring you conversations that uplift, strategies that empower, and encouragement you can carry with you throughout everyday life. Let's grow stronger and healthier together.
Hey, Vanessa, girl, how are you today?
Good. How are you been doing, Keisha?
It's been a great week, and I'm glad we're here today to talk some more about, Mental Health Awareness Week, and also talking to people about Senior Citizen or Senior American Awareness Week.
Okay, good. I'm hoping that with Nurses Week being last week, that you took some of the tips and did some self-care, and that we created some of those boundaries and made sure we had some balance in our life. And again, happy Nurses Week from last week. You guys do so much, so we want to make sure that we say thank you for all you do. And we hope that you did take some time out for yourself and took care of yourself so you can take care of those that you love.
I took a nap. I was so proud of myself. I was tired, and I said it was time to go to sleep, and I took a nap. So I was proud of me. So, go ahead and get started today. And I thought today would be a good topic to talk about depression. And since, depression, it does affect a lot of people, but I thought today we should talk about depression among the elderly. What you think about that?
I think that's fabulous, Keisha, because a lot of times we don't talk about it, and it's a very big factor with our senior citizens for many reasons. It is they're on this side of the mountain. They are probably retired for the most part. They're not able to do some of the things that they once did when they were younger. So depression hits many elderly, especially if they've lost their significant other, they've lost children. At that time, there's a lot of loss that goes on with senior citizens. So this is a fabulous topic to talk about in the month of Mental Health Awareness Month. So fabulous.
Yeah, and depression usually, affects people who have chronic medical conditions. And, since that's what we deal with here, with Dear Encourager, and it affects people who have chronic impairment, and usually it makes people, it interrupts their family dynamic. It causes suffering, and it also causes a disability. With that, it usually leads to some type of mortality in the family structure.
Right. Because we know that positive mindset, and when we're dealing with depression, it exacerbates whatever sickness that they already have. So I definitely agree with all those facts.
Yeah. And typically sometimes folks don't understand that when people have different medical conditions, it can actually lead to a breakdown in the brain. So, so if they have problems, let's say like arteriosclerosis or inflammatory diseases, endocrine conditions, immune conditions or changes, or any type of compromise, then the front portions of the brain can actually be affected. And then that usually makes people vulnerable to having depression. And what people also starting to see when I was doing my research all the way back to 2002, they were saying that you could even see that depression could be linked to heredity. When people are saying, depression runs in my family, and you see some people sometimes debate about it and be like, yeah, right. No, it's really true. I was reading in an article, The Lancet, where it has a lot of medical articles, that they were saying, no, there was truly some conditions where that was some medical evidence that you could see that depression was linked with families. But of course, it was also noted that they had medical conditions that were similar, but the depression was also there.
Yes, Keisha, that's true with most mental health issues, concerns are genetic, hereditary. That is true, and a lot of people don't. And what a reason a lot of people don't agree with it or don't believe it is because, just say, maybe my daughter, maybe she suffers from depression or anxiety, but I don't. But maybe my mother did, or my grandmother
Mm-hmm.
did, or even my great grandmother. Sometimes it's just like, you have hazel eyes, but none of your children get it, but then your grandchild gets it. So a lot of times people don't understand that it can, just like any other genetic, skip a generation and come to fruition in another generation. So yeah, completely true.
Yes. So, and also we have to remember too with this, the medications, watch on television and you listen to those commercials, and how many of those commercials say this medication may cause depression?
Mhm.
You got to think about that too. So this could also lead to someone being susceptible to it. And what we've been finding out is that other risk factors for depression in the elderly is isolation. Um, when they're at home and they don't want to go out. And especially, we were talking about this last week. COVID has changed our ways of going out and socializing. More people have gotten used to being at home and not going and talk to anybody. And you see that there people are lonely, and they don't talk about those feelings. They've gotten used to the fact, okay, I've been at home, I've been alone, this is just the way of life, and this is what
Right.
I'm going to.
Exactly.
We are seeing also that people are being abused,
Right.
and some people don't think that what they're dealing with is abuse, but it is abuse. When it's verbal abuse, oh, mama, you just this, daddy, you just this, you're getting on my nerves, you're doing this, that, and the other. Auntie, I'm tired of doing this, that, and the other for you. And you see them shrink as a person because they are feeling that they have to deal with this type of behavior because they're at the mercy, for lack of a better word, of being in the care of these people when they
Right.
truthfully don't have to be. Let's just be real about it. Um,
Right.
and then also when they lose a family member and they are going through grief, and they are going through this grief and going through it in an unhealthy way, as you know that they are, because they don't have to be in bereavement in the way that they're going, because that there are counselors and things that are out there, and some people just don't know about the resources that are available. And so that leaves them at a risk for it. And then change in income. Think about it.
Right.
These people who used to making high roller salaries, and maybe they didn't plan well. And then now they are on Social Security. And we know how
Right.
much money that is, next to nothing.
Exactly.
And so when you don't plan, and now you go, ooh, excuse me, for making this much money to now you're making this little money, and you're trying to live, and you're seeing on the news how this amount of money is that you already barely making is being at risk for being replenished.
Sometimes it's not even that they plan well, but when we have a sickness or illness that takes over where they haven't put in those medical expenses and those medicines, that sometimes, we're trying to do these trial drugs that are more expensive. So it's not even that maybe I manage my money well and I have this savings, but this sickness and this illness that sometimes it come out of nowhere. And now I'm having all of these medical expenses that I wasn't aware of, that I, didn't plan for, because I was healthy.
That is true. And they are at the mercy of other people and the
Right.
insurance companies too. So yeah, you're right. So that is something that could also play into that. But another thing, as we're talking, we need to also make sure that people who are out here listening know that you need to make sure that your depression is diagnosed by a health professional. Everything, because you don't want your cousin or your auntie to tell you that you are having a certain diagnosis, because you may not even have depression. It could just be a side effect of something. You may need to just have some medication adjusted. So that's why it's best to always go and seek medical help. But if you are a person who has depression, just know that you're not alone. We're not trying to minimize depression in any way. We're just saying it's important for you to go and get the medical diagnosis, okay? And just know that 1 in 4 of people who are elderly typically have major depression, and so women are known to have twice the diagnosis than men. Now, there may be a chance that the reason why they are twice diagnosed because they go more to the doctor than men, but that is what I've seen in the research that I've read. Have you seen anything about like something similar to that?
Yes, Keisha, and also we know, as we were talking on last week, that most women are the caregivers. So that's another reason we're taking on more of the family burdens, should I say?
Mm-hmm.
In I'll say it in that terms. Also, I want people to understand there's a difference between being depressed when there's a short stint, something happened, and I'm depressed because my daughter died, or I'm depressed because my husband died, or I'm depressed because I'm not able to do the things I used to do. I'm not as independent. We're talking about depression when this person has been depressed for months, for years, and they cannot get out of it, and they're fighting to be, or I just don't know why I'm depressed today. I woke up. So there's a difference in being depressed and then struggling with depression, because that's what I want to say, that we're living with depression. I don't want to say that the person is, that's how I like to say is that I am a person living with depression. I am working through my depression to make sure that people understand the difference between being depressed and having depression, especially
Mm-hmm.
major depression.
And I was shocked to see that in the elderly that bipolar depression is being diagnosed more, and that's when the moods, with mania and stuff, is the different elevated moods.
Well,
And I
Keisha,
was
when
just
you
like,
think
what?
about it, I mean, think about all the things that the elderly, especially now, are having to deal with. Just let's say that they don't live near their family members, their children. As we say, we know their income is different, and I'm struggling with all these things. I'm not independent anymore. I'm trying to still contribute to society, and in what way? So I struggle with so many different things, and then someday I may feel like I am contributing and things are beneficial to others, not just myself. And then the
Mm-hmm.
next day I feel like I'm a burden, that I'm an invalid. I'm not being able to do and contribute. So it's that up and down that a lot of them struggle with.
What I've been seeing, in this new field of business that I'm in is a lot of children have moved their parents here to stay with them. And I'm seeing a lot of depression, from the change of life and moving away from their friends and their siblings and their churches and all that. So, it's like a situational isolation,
Right.
and I think the children don't necessarily understand the need for their parents to have some type of structure. They're like, oh, you fine, you here with me.
Right.
And I think we need to make sure that the elders of our lives have some type of structure so they can still be able to function. They still need to be able to have lives. Maybe even if it's something like going to some activity centers,
Right.
then making sure when they move to a different place that they're able to feel a part of the community, because we want to keep them from maybe being in a place where they feel so low, where they won't have suicidal ideations or feel hopeless. We want to make sure that they're getting the right medications, connected to the right doctors, just not thrown here in not connected to a good church. And let's be real, they may not be connected to the church that you attend.
Exactly. And when we think about it, Keisha, our elderly right now, they were born in the 40s, the
Mm-hmm.
50s, early 60s. That generation, they didn't move around. They were
Mm-mm.
stable. And so when you're thinking of uprooting people, most of them have lived in this area for 40, 50 years. So then I'm uprooting them. So that's when we have to make sure, as you say, they have regular social activities, getting them out there, making them understand, making sure that they are connected with community programs, making sure that they do have a friend, that we do introduce them to people, and also being that person, you know what, if they do have Aunt Susie or Uncle Joe, talking to our fellow cousins or friends and say, hey, let's have an adult play date for our elderly. Let's get them down here. You know, let's pick a weekend so they can still feel like, as you say, that they have a life and that they are connected to people, because that's vital to their mental state. When we're talking about managing this depression, these are things that we want to do. We want to make sure that they understand technology where they can FaceTime and they can do all of those things, and they can get on Facebook, Instagram, all of these different platforms, and
Mhm.
feel connected. And then also, pet therapy, having a companion. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a person. And also it's good because they can take care, because, they still want to feel like they're able to take care of someone or something and not just themselves. And then,
Exactly.
you are in this field as well, in transportation services, allowing them to be able to do other things and being independent in that way, where they're not always dependent on a family member to take them somewhere. That's a way that
Mhm.
we combat that isolation and that loneliness.
You used to joke, well, at least we used to in high school, about bingo. How people love to go to bingo.
Yes,
Still, if bingo going on somewhere, go to bingo.
right,
Bunko. Is that how you say that? Bunko? I think that's what the game that people be playing in Austin. They have all these Bunko groups around here. Let them go to Bunko, let them go to play chess, checkers, whatever. But wherever there's a group, wherever they can be connected and just have some type of fellowship, small groups like church, let anything where they can be connected, because it's important. Also, making sure walking groups, cooking groups. Yeah, making sure that there is opportunity to keep them from being in fellowship and not in isolation, because we sometimes forget that it's not just us, it's also about our family member, and they loved us through our times when we were younger and took us to all the things that we wanted to do, and now it's our turn to make sure that we love on them. Connect with the council on aging in your area. They have drive seniors different places. They have meals on wheels where people can come and bring them food and socialize with them. Connect with different groups like Dear Encourager. That's what we're here for, to try to connect people with resources for this type of situation, because that's why we wanted to connect, and that's why we created this, because
right,
we felt people with chronic illnesses needed support, and we
right.
felt caregivers needed support. So connect with your community resources to make sure that the needs of your family and yourself are being addressed. And
And
also call us out. If you feel like, okay, you said this is what you were here to do, you're not helping me. Let's just be real
right.
about it.
But hey, but Keisha, with that, you gotta ask for the help. You gotta be, hey, I need this. I'm struggling. You got to ask for the help. You have to. And all these things that you were talking about, these activities, Keisha, they go right in line with making sure that our elderly are staying physical, that they're staying active. Like you said, the cooking group, that's making sure that they're eating healthy, getting out there playing bingo, chess, walking. That's making sure that they're physical. Also, one of the things that we want to make sure that we address with a lot of our elderly, and this has to do more with us not wanting to
Mhm.
have those conversations, and that's about end of life transition. We got to have those conversations. We got to have those conversations, because whether we want to believe it or not, they're thinking about it. Because, as I said earlier, they have more years behind them they do ahead of them, so they're
Yeah.
thinking about that. And when we have those discussions, because we have to put our little emotions and feelings to the side and get to the nitty gritty with our family members and discuss that, and we need to
Yes, we
see where
do.
their head is, because if they're not in a right mindset, we need to make sure that we get them some counseling, especially if
Hmm.
we have an individual who has lost their wife or husband, they are a widow, a widower. So we have to make sure that we get them help. And sometimes, a lot of times we think that we can fix it. That, I'll go over there and I'll talk to them or I'll spend time with them. And that's wonderful and that's great. And that'll help with some areas, but some areas we cannot help. And that's why we need to make sure that they get the counseling and the things that they need. And then just, being there when we are there with them, let them tell their stories to us. I don't care if they told them to us 100 times. Let them, relive them. I want you to think about a time when you had a great vacation, or you know how when we start talking about that, how it just starts bringing us back joy and we start smiling when we're just talking about it because we start thinking about it and we start getting those good feelings about where we were. And Keisha, while we're talking about this, I want to bring up our Dear Encourager information booklet, because this is a great tool for them to have to put all of this information in.
Right
So
here.
we do have a information booklet that you can sit down with your loved one and you guys can discuss all of these things with them, making sure that you are discussing the doctors, putting it in this booklet so you know who the doctor is. Make sure you know what their decision and their choices are. Yeah. So if you look there's Keisha, can you show them the different pages
Absolutely.
where you can put all of this information? Go on and show
Okay.
them, Keisha. I'll let you tell them what's in that right
Okay.
there.
Thing about this book is you can put your personal information. It talks about pretty much anything that your family member will need. Will your personal information, your social security number, any of your confidential information. The main thing that we want to stress is this is a book that you should make sure you keep locked away. And only certain people should know where this information is, okay? But what's important about it is this is something that if something should happen to you, key people in your family will know where it is, okay? Your insurance information, your information about your doctors, about your insurance policies for your medical, home, for your life insurance, for any of your financial information for your end of life. Where would you want to be buried? Where the songs that you want sung at your funeral, clothing you want worn, everything you could possibly think of is there. And this will just help keep the strain off your family members, okay? And this is a great resource, and it's $25, and you can order it on our website, and we'll be happy to mail it to you. But it's a win for everyone. Your family is not stressed. They know what you want, and it's just a great helpful tip for you. And it also has pages for you while you're still here where you can put passwords, because every time you turn around somebody is asking for 2 passwords for almost everything that you have to get into, and sometimes they even want you to go back and put a password key, so you don't have to worry about that. We just wanted to let you know that this is something that could help you all and your family.
Everybody know that I used to be the caregiver for my mom. And in that booklet, so when we would go to different doctors, because when you start getting up age, you have to have a different doctor for everything. And one thing they would always ask, and we know sometimes my mother had a lot of medical conditions, concerns. So she had a laundry list of medicines. And so, yes, medication, she had a laundry list. And so I had to take this sheet that I would keep in my purse, that I would have to make sure. And this booklet is neat, it's nice. You can put it in a bag and it's right there for you. Another thing that it has, me and my brother were good at it, but it would have been great if we had a booklet like this that told everything that when my mom passed, what she wanted. And so if
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a will and if you don't have anything like this is a great tool to use. This can be your guide to your will. Like I said, I know it's topics that we really don't want to discuss, but it's topics that we need to discuss, guys. And we're here to help you and guide you. We're going to give you resources. We are a resource. So make sure that you're tuning into us each week, so you can get these great nuggets that we're throwing out to you.
Also, we say this every single week and we mean it. if there's something that you want us to help you with, let us know. Genuine when we say, how can we help you? So if there's some resources that you would like us to provide, some topics you want to discuss, contact us and let us know, because we're here to help you. So I hope that you have learned something from what we discussed today, and we hope to talk to you again next week. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Yes, as always, thank you for tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, and share it on all platforms. That's TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget YouTube.
Spotify, on Apple, YouTube, you name it. We're everywhere.
Oh yeah, I forgot we're on all of the platforms now. I feel like we big balling now, if they call it. Baller alert.
Have a great one, y'all. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks again for tuning in to Dear Encourager. We hope today's episode brought you comfort, strength, and a reminder that you're not alone. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Dear Encourager. Like, subscribe, and share this episode on YouTube, and connect with us on Facebook to stay in the loop with everything we have coming up. Your support helps us grow this space of hope and healing, one listener at a time.